Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm so honored you guys are here. I think we're mostly California, if not everyone in California. Feel free to pop in the chat if you're not in LA. Also, it's always fun if you want to pop in the chat. What's your sun sign? You can also pop in maybe what's your sun sign and what's your favorite sign. It might not be your sun sign. Hopefully it is, maybe not. No judgment. And what I'm going to share with you today is my deepest passion at this moment and is a totally different way to see the world, I think. And we'll get more into the content, but I find this work life-changing. I feel very grateful that I have gotten to train with like one of the masters in this field for several years and to really be alive right now, that's one of my big takeaways. Being alive right now for all the chaos and the craziness and the duality is at a soul level one of the most sacred gifts. Like really, really sacred for soul work and for self-actualizing. But what I'm learning at this stage, and we'll talk about a lot about 2025, a little bit about 2026, and also about the eclipse season, but more generally from a soul reference point. One of my favorite terms in the English language is this idea of self-actualizing. And I think from the perspective of self-actualizing your soul dreams, now we won the lottery to be alive on this earth at this time. And my hope is that you feel some of that by the time that we're done. So let me pull up some slides. As a recovering business executive consultant, I have a love-hate relationship with slides. Um, I'm grateful to have them, but I really want this to be as conversational as possible because I feel that's like the best transmission. So I gave a part one to this presentation at the end of last year, and it was called Collective Awakening 2025, but by the time I was done with the presentation, I understood that there was a deeper theme, which I call the dawn of cosmic consciousness. And I'm going to break that down for you, but see what I mean by that. But the short version of that is that in the same way the last 10, 12, 15 years was the dawn of earth-based consciousness with the pandemic, awakening to our food sources, the climate change. I believe the next 10, 12, 15 years will be the dawn of something called cosmic consciousness, where we know our place in the universe, where we understand the power and the relevance of the stars. One of the most ancient sciences is astrology. It's 5,000, 6,000 years old. This is an ancient, ancient wisdom that has been lost in many ways. And I would also argue like infantilized in modern culture with this idea of horoscopes. And I just think it's going to change the reality of how we move through the world and live on this planet. So I'm super excited about that. And one of my dear friends, Lisa, is here. She's an expert in human design and gene keys, if you guys are familiar with that. And really, I hear story in LA, at least, you can't go to a restaurant without hearing someone talking about astrology or human design. But I hear stories in like the Google cafeteria, people are talking about their human design. This is part of cosmic consciousness. And we're very fortunate to live in a time where this other dimension of reality is becoming real and accepted. And a tool, a huge tool. So there's three parts to today. The first part will be the most slides. It's called Collective Awakening and what's happening in the field. I'm also going to intro myself a little bit and this field. And I'm going to be grounding a lot there. And then part two is about making it personal. What does it mean for me? And I'll pick one of your charts and I'm going to teach using a real life example. And the third part is really, what does this mean for my life looking forward? I'm going to talk a little bit about a really fun, deep, powerful mini course I'm offering, but I'm also going to just shed light on some of those themes. And what I was starting to say earlier, which is that self-actualization and this tension between like what's my ego wants and what does my human self want? What do I think my destiny is? And what does the higher power or my soul self really want to actualize in this life? Which I feel is a big theme from the eclipse that we were just in. So most of you know me pretty well or have studied with me before. A couple are new. So I'm going to share this. This is kind of a fun way how I talk about my journey, that I was kissed by the cosmos. And actually, like my spiritual awakening, I would say, started before the cosmos kissed me, even though honestly, they've been kissing me my whole life, I think. I'm a Leo, so I feel chosen, let's say. But I sort of climbed, if anyone's familiar with the two mountains, I climbed the first mountain, did all the things, child of immigrants from Iran, Jewish immigrants. My mom grew up in Shiraz, and at 23, I got to go to Harvard Business School. Like, how does that happen, right? So I had a really cool storied career in New York. I climbed to the top of the tower, the first mountain, literally the 50th floor of 30 Rockefeller Center, with Jimmy Fallon, Tina Fey, the CEOs, the executive team, running board meetings. And at some point I looked around and I said, this isn't true power. If this is what's at the top, this isn't real power. And I have a joke, and the truth is it took 7 years, more or less, but I have a joke that even on the 50th floor, I had to look higher up and find the stars and the planets and the cosmos to find real power. And so that's the second mountain. It didn't come immediately. I went through a journey. I moved to Israel. I traversed the underworld. I experienced a lot of destruction and loss, and my life took a different direction. But then I found my soul part, or my soul parts, and did a lot of ancestral healing, and then eventually found archetypal astrology. I have a cool podcast. It's called Heaven on Earth. And I talk about my journey more, and I talk about all these fields that I'm so passionate about. And eventually I found the power within. That's the name of my company and like my purpose, I would say. And I'll share more about that as we go. So I love sharing this quote. I'll read it out loud. It's from Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. There's a reason that it's called awakening. We are waking something up in ourselves, some remembrance, some inner knowing, multiple dimensions, I would say. And the field that I'm trained in, archetypal astrology, is based on Carl Jung's works in Jungian psychology, transpersonal psychology, some people call it. And it really is about bringing the unconscious into the conscious. And as I understand it, even Carl Jung started to look at and examine astrology as a map for some of this. But really, the field of archetypal astrology was founded after his death. So this is another favorite picture. If you've been in my past master classes, you'll recognize it. Hopefully some of you recognize what this is. It's our home address, I like to say. This is the Milky Way. We live in the Milky Way. It's a magical spiral. It's very feminine, right? The Milky Way, mother's milk. Spiral is a symbol of the archetypal feminine. And that's our home address. And what I try to get across to people is like this stuff, the fact that we live in the Milky Way and the sun and the moon are more real than like 90 to 95% of stuff we think about and think are real in our life. Like, I don't want to be dismissive, but like, job, okay, we have a job, okay, we're watching a TV show, whatever it is, this is more real than that. Like, I work with C-suite executives in the S&P 500 and was in board meetings that were very serious about growth trajectories, and I did strategy for these companies. This is more real than that. It just is. We come from the earth, we're made of stardust. It's just more real. So I'm not against modernity in the business world and any of that. I just find it so important to ground us in that reality. And the other thing I love to say about this for people who are familiar with the idea of the Hermetic principle, it's called as above, so below. It's very foundational to Jungian psychology, archetypes, archetypal work, archetypal astrology. Just going to move this over. And that's really what this psychology or way of seeing the world is based on. As above, so below, as within, so without. And that means that we have the power within ourselves to transform our external reality. And I believe that the change that's coming to this world is going to be from the ground up, from individual consciousness and healing and change. The other cool thing I learned the first time I was the first presentation, part one of this in late November last year was, I went to business school, we use a lot of like terms and stuff. This idea of macrocosm, microcosm literally comes from the cosmos. So as above the macrocosm, so below the microcosm, as within, so without. We are a microcosm of this planet in some ways. Our body is a microcosm of the earth. Actually, I don't want you to read that yet. So, I took this training course in archetypal astrology and it was all exciting and I loved astrology as a kid, but I never thought that it was going to be the field that I work in until in my training with these masters around the world that I was very lucky to study with. One of them described the shift that we're living through as a shift in power structures. And he shared this in the context of something called the Age of Aquarius. And, there's a song about the Age of Aquarius. It's sort of like this, I don't know, old wives' tale or this prophecy, whatever it is. So it was presented to me in this idea of power structures. And when I heard about the shift in power structures, it's everything I saw in the C-suite of America and in companies and in the web of social media and the World Wide Web and social networks. So I'm going to share what I've added to it, which is the premise for my work in the world. This idea that we're moving from, you could summarize a lot of the changes that we're moving through: political strife, companies being disrupted, whole industries being disrupted, populations, religion being disrupted, that we are shifting from systems of power over into systems of power with. But we can't have power with until we have power within. And what I mean by that, and this is a lesson I've learned in my marriage, like I'm very open about that. I feel I, in some ways, inherited the power over, power under classic, like programming of that's what marriage is. Like oftentimes the man has power over, the woman has power under, or working on a leadership team or for a senior executive, or even when I was more junior, my boss had power over, I had power under. Even in parent-child relationships, I think it's most relevant at home, and then we can take it into the workplace. But shifting from these vertical power dynamics into horizontal power with, but we can't be the ambassadors for power with until we unlock our power within. And so a lot of, even I do private readings in my practice with people's astrology, it's really all about reorienting yourself to your unique makeup and constellation, how you've been designed to move through the world as the unique specimen and human that you are, and to help you access and remember power within. That's partly a collective journey, very connected to the solar plexus chakra for those who are familiar with the chakras. It's our inner sun, just like the outer sun is the center of our solar system and is this masculine power and source of power, right? Just like the world is moving onto solar power, so are we. Just like the world is moving into clean energy, so are we. And we can't have clean energy until we navigate this shift to power with. And it's not going to happen overnight. I feel you need to find the correct relationships to practice sharing power with people, I found. It's probably not going to happen at work first. Or it can, it depends, right? Everyone has a different story. So my professor also shared this. I'm pretty sure it's from the New Yorker. And it kind of describes the age of Aquarius. I don't know what's going on, but I don't like the look of it, right? All the people are wearing crowns now. It's no longer the guru or the monarch or even the CEO. It's not a pyramid structure anymore. We can't do top down. It's becoming a web, sort of like Web3, social media, social networks, just a neural network, mycelium, kind of like the mushrooms. And we have to all, I think that's a beautiful way of describing what we're living through. And as we get into some more of the actual astrology, I'll explain what it has to do with Aquarius. The spoiler is that it's not just Aquarius, it's also Leo, which is why when I say that I like learn about this at home, I'm the Leo, Jesse's Aquarius, they're opposite in the wheel of astrology because the times we're living in, we're moving into new dimensions. We're moving past duality. So we're living on what feels like the most polarized time in this country, on this earth. And we're learning how to transcend duality because we're so fucking powerful and we're so multidimensional. We're multidimensional humans, actually. And so I actually refer to it as the age of Aquarius and Leo because it's taking elements of both. We'll get into it. I'm going to get a little technical with you. The age of Aquarius is based on the tilt of the earth. It's something called the precessional. And because the earth is on a bit of a tilt, it means that it points to different constellations. So here we see it's pointing to Aquarius. That's the age that we're in. It's a 26,000 year cycle through the 12 constellations. And it's about 2,000, actually more like 2,150 years in each sign. We've heard about the age of Aquarius for a while. In some metrics, that's a 2,150 year cycle that we're living through the shift of. In other metrics, the prophecy is about this one age, not the age of Pisces, not the age of Aries. It moves actually backwards. And so you could say it's a 26,000 year cycle that we're living through. I don't have the precision. I have a few different numbers that I work with. A lot of people this last year have been talking about the age of Aquarius because Pluto, the furthest away planet that we've discovered that has the longest orbit around the sun, 248 years roughly, moved into Aquarius. So that's one marker for this time. So we could think about 26,000 year cycle, a 2,000 year cycle, a 250 year cycle, a 21 year cycle, whatever you want to call it. In human design, it's a 400 year cycle of a big shift coming. If you look at the Kali Yuga, it's even a deeper cycle, but these are all interesting markers. So what does this look like on Earth? I'll speak a little bit about, so you could see it's small, but Aquarius and Leo being opposite, even though there are signs that are opposite. So the zodiac goes from Aries to Pisces. There's 12 signs and there's 6 pairings. Even though they're opposite and there's a polarity there, they all have things in common. So Leo represents sovereignty. Sovereign is a ruler and also kingdom or queendom, a monarch. It's our glory. It's our crown. It rules the heart, actually. It's all about leadership. Aquarius, which I've learned personally on the other side, is actually for the people. So where they're similar is Aquarians are very individual. They're very do their own thing. They don't like authority sometimes. They like to be the boss. They just need freedom. Both signs love freedom. Sovereignty also is another word there. Sovereignty is another word for freedom. It means different things to different people. For me, it means freedom, but also rulership. And the idea that brings it back to this cartoon is that we can't have the Aquarian humanitarian systems that are inclusive for all, I believe. The collective, right? 11th house for people who know it better. The collective, the groupings, the associations, the community, until we all access our power. That's the power within. That's the Leo. That's the heart. The heart and the solar plexus are connected. So what does this look like? I'm going to bring it to 2025 a little bit. I find it from an archetypal perspective. I find it incredible that and you'll see, I show that it's an 18-month window that this new paradigm is being grounded on Earth. We're right smack in the middle of it, a little bit past the middle. In 18 months, there's a new paradigm grounding here for us to learn and work with, all about this power structure shifting and Leo and Aquarius. And what happens in that year of utter chaos and destruction? This country is filled with thousands of people, maybe one of the biggest protests ever. And the symbol is about kingship. And that we don't have a king in this country. Why? Because we're all kings and queens. Because we were born with so much power, so much connection to source. And unfortunately, our systems and our world, especially in the West, becoming so out of balance, caused us to forget. And what made me actually pretty emotional is, of all the archetypal expressions of power in one person in this globe, when the new Pope was voted in, such a global expression of power in a singular person, that he chose the name Leo. It's really about power to the people. And you can tell he's a humble guy and he's an American Pope. So I actually do think a lot of this reckoning is happening in America, in the United States. And for all of its flaws, we have been one of the more advanced democracies. I struggle to call it that because I feel that there's a lot of corruption, but there is a lot of freedom, relatively speaking, in this country. And this country has been a leader. And I do think a lot of the reckoning will happen here. I wanted to pause here for questions.
I'm just
Me?
curious about more about like Pope Leo choosing his name, like the significance of using Leo.
I think it's really about symbols and symbolism. I don't think it was a conscious choice. I just really believe that this time is about transcending duality, and it's the age of Aquarius and Leo. And so to have that be the symbol that's chosen, I think a lot of the transformation, by the way, is not conscious. I know I use that Jung quote about bringing the unconscious to the conscious, but I don't actually think the world's survival relies on us. I actually think that we're here to fulfill our own soul mission or dreams and spirit. Like the way I think about it or talk about it is spirit's like not stressed that we're not doing our part, and like spirit doesn't need us to go do the thing or be martyrs. Actually, that's very much the old being a martyr. Very much I actually relate to this time as the feminine coming back to meet the archetypal masculine and us coming into balance. And the feminine is really about pleasure and slowing down and enjoying our lives and honoring the mother and where we come from and the earth. And the earth is our body, honoring our bodies, not being so linear, go, 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 right? Stock market, stakeholders over people's well-being and like a life well lived and access to water and healthcare and all those things. It's not political for me. It's essential. So now I'm going to ground some real, there's a little bit more, this is the more mental or intellectual stuff. We're going to get into the planets. And I know everyone's at a different level with it, but I think I can really simplify it pretty well. So in my practice, in many practices, but in archetypal astrology, we really focus on the 10 heavenly bodies. And we call them heavenly bodies because 8 of them are planets and 2 are luminaries, the sun and the moon. And within those 10 heavenly bodies, we focus actually on the sacred geometry in the cosmos, right? Pythagoras, which we learn in math class as kids, really, it was a spiritual person and grounded this idea of sacred geometry that's coming back into the forefront through shamanism in different fields right now. And even with Jung and the idea of the mandala and all these concepts, there's a place for sacred geometry. One of my favorite expressions of that is the beehive, right? The hexagram is one of the most sacred, strongest structures on this planet. We see it in nature. So we look at the sacred geometry between planets and the skies to understand the consciousness of what's being brought to us or activated. And then when in my private practice, when I read for people, I focus on the sacred geometry in your chart to tell you why you were made the way you were. Okay, why do you have all this tension in the house of family or in relationships? Because you were designed with that tension to fulfill your greatest soul dreams. It's like part of why you are who you are, and we need tension for creativity. So within the 10 heavenly bodies, the first 5 are called personal planets, and they're closest to the earth and the sun, and so they move more quickly. The 5 outer planets, Jupiter to Pluto in order of distance, are considered transpersonal planets. And what that means is whole generations of people often are born with them in the same signs because they move more slowly. That's why millennials and Gen Z have a certain imprinting. And they affect the collective. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So before I enlighten you or like reveal this revelation that I found when I was studying the transits, this is kind of what it looks like. So it's all from the perspective of the earth. We see a planet or the sun in a sign because it's in that constellation, that part of the sky for us. I'm not going to get too mechanical, but I like to visualize it a bit. So today, this idea of the dawning of cosmic consciousness is that there's a new paradigm landing on this earth based on the 3 furthest away planets moving into new signs in an exquisite synchronicity, which so much of sacred geometry is, but this is beyond. And really, some people say it's the first time in maybe 100,000 years that we've experienced this kind of synchronized shift all at once, which is why things feel so intense here. And actually, when I first gave the presentation, I really focused on the bottom 3. So Pluto, I said, has about a 250-year orbit from our perspective. Neptune is 165 years, and Uranus is 84 years. Pluto is the least circular, but when I look at the time per sign, it really varies because there's an intelligence that we can't understand. And there's a synchronization that we can't fully understand or grasp. But on average, Pluto will spend 21 years. I think that's the amount of time Pluto will spend in Aquarius, actually. But in the past, it spent 15 years in signs. And what I'm going to explain is that the 248-year cycle, the 165-year cycle, the 84-year cycle have all synchronized so that within 18 months, they're landing in new signs. And not only that, there's 4 elements in astrology: earth, water, fire, and air. So all of your signs, your sun signs, all the signs correlate. Leo's fire, Aquarius, contrary to what most people believe, is actually an air sign. But it is the water bearer. It's connected to water, which is why people talk about the age of Aquarius as a new consciousness, because bringing water is a symbol for bringing new consciousness. And there is a whole water consciousness that's coming to life. Wow, I'm throwing so much information at you. I'm just trusting that you'll receive what you need or what you want, and the rest will percolate in your subconscious. So the furthest 3 are synchronized. And I actually didn't focus on Saturn because we think of Jupiter and Saturn a little bit more personal, a little bit closer, less seismic. But Saturn's actually also synchronized. In fact, Saturn and Neptune have been moving together to bring us into a new space, which is actually why this year has been so karmic, because Saturn is the planet of karma, and it's bringing a lot of stuff up. I wasn't going to share this next slide. It's from the last presentation because I think it would take too much time to explain to everyone. It's a little more complex. But it's just to say that in archetypal astrology, each of the planets represents archetypal energies. They each have their own consciousness and their own impact on us personally and collectively. So Pluto is big, it's power. Pluto is power. It's actually a feminine considered a feminine planet, and it's power. And it's all about transformation. Neptune is the dreamer. It allows us to reimagine something. For the past almost 14 years, let's say, Neptune has been going through the final sign of the zodiac, Pisces, which represents the 12th house, the collective unconscious, and has been drudging everything up so that we can reimagine life on this planet, so we can reimagine familial relationships. And Uranus is the third one. Uranus is kind of like Elon Musk energy. It's really the rebel. It's ruled by Aquarius and Saturn. So it's like in the mythology, Uranus wants to overthrow his father, does overthrow his father. He wants to burn down the old and build the new. But how funny that Aquarius is Uranus, which is burning down the old and rebelling and building the new. And it's co-ruled by Saturn, which is about tradition, the grandfather. And that's kind of our task. It's how do we preserve what works and the tradition and the legacy and do something crazy and build something new. And I joke that it's like Elon Musk energy. Aquarius, it's Uranus is electricity, technology, right? Tesla. Invention, ideas, lightning. It's moving into Gemini. So we're living in a time where new ideas, that's what's happening in AI, are going to come. We're gonna experience things or learn things or see things that we didn't understand. I have a whole theory about it, but I'm gonna keep going. I have one more thing to ground, which is why it's the dawn of cosmic consciousness and really mapping out this time for you. And then we'll move into more of the fun stuff. Not that this isn't fun. This is a timeline that looks at the second half of 2024, 6 months, each of these blocks, through the first half of 2026. And this is why I'm saying that within 18 months, we have a totally new paradigm. So in 2024, at the beginning of the year, Pluto moved into Aquarius for the first time. But when these planets, especially the outer planets, make a transit and move forward, there's a period of time, usually between 4 and 6 months for the outer planets, that it appears to be moving backwards. That's called retrograde. And so they go into the new paradigm, the new energy. We get to taste it. And then they go into retrograde, and we have to, retrograde is reflect, refine, reconsider. And that's why it's been so rough, especially for the planets Neptune and Saturn that went through Pisces, all the collective unconscious, all the dreams, all that history, all that underworld, and then came into, wow, Aries, the start of a new cycle. And then they went all the way back. It's like if there was anything, any stone left unturned karmically that doesn't serve you in this next phase of your life, which is particular to each person, it's coming up. And 2025 is kind of like the messy middle. So here I have Pluto went in January, then it retrograded for a lot of 2024, which was tough. And then it came through at the end of November. It's not going back again into behind Aquarius. That the Capricorn, which represents our systems, our patriarchy, our old work, stuff like that, it's now in Aquarius. It's a different reality. In 2025, Neptune, Uranus, and also I'll say conversationally, which is true, Saturn moved into their next placement. So the way I describe it is that 2025 was a test drive. We got to feel that paradigm. Neptune went in for its test drive. Uranus went in for its test drive. So from July, for a month or two before, I forget the exact date, Neptune started going back and went all the way back into Pisces again. We got a feel for this new paradigm. If I had more time, or if you want to go back and there's a replay from my first workshop, I explain what each planet means and what that means for the new paradigm. But for now, you'll have to take my word for it. In the first 6 months of 2026, this new paradigm becomes permanent. I say that with an asterisk because there's really no such thing as permanence. There's always forward movement and intelligence and synchronicity, but they're not going back anymore. And Uranus, the third in the in the trio does that April 26th. It's actually really beautiful. Neptune does it January 26th, 2026. Uranus does it April 26th, 2026. And then the lunar nodes for people who follow that, I'm not going to explain it, is July 26th, 2026. And actually, I learned a week ago during the Jewish holiday of New Year's, actually from Erez, Nelly, that 26 is one of, in the Gematria in Judaism, it's one of the numbers for Hashem. So why was 2025 so karmic? If you actually bring in the numerology, 2025 adds up to 9. And 9 is the end of a cycle, 0 or 1 through 9. We think it's a 9-year cycle, but in that 9th final year of the cycle, Saturn finished Pisces a whole orbit, a 30-year cycle. The planet of karma finished its whole orbit and is starting fresh in the zodiac at the same time that Neptune finished a 165-year cycle together. So the planet of karma and lessons and time, Saturn I like to think of as like the Dom. Really like your Saturn return around the time you're 30, like there can be a lot of stuff cut away from your life or a lot of just tough lessons. They did it together. So we closed a 165-year cycle. We closed a 30-year cycle of karmic purge, and it's a 9-year. This is another layer of the synchronicity and the intelligence of the universe, which speaks in numbers, symbols, whatever that is. I wanted to call 2025 the messy middle, but the truth is that these few set of years are all the messy middles. 2026 adds up to 1, and it's the start of the new. But it's still messy because there's still, this could be a 2,000 year or a 26,000 year change in humanity. I could go deep into the eccentric stuff about Homo sapiens changing into Homo luminous. Like we're just changing, even evolution of the solar plexus. I'm not going to get into that. You can find me offline if you want to know more about that. But the numerology is part of it. And I'm actually going to touch on that. I'm going to touch on eclipse season, which has a big takeaway about the numerology. Okay, people are ready for it. So I started to explain some of this. The 9-year Saturn and Neptune are completing an orbit. I didn't fully ground this. I'll ground it a little bit more. The fire and air. It's not just that they're moving in a synchronized format into new signs. Everyone's moving into fire and air. And that's the dawning of cosmic consciousness. For the last period of time, they were all in earth and water signs. That's the earth-based consciousness. But as above, so below, and cosmic consciousness and earth-based consciousness are mirrors. We live in a holographic universe. And so I feel the symbolism of us moving into fire and air signs. And for those that follow, I mentioned in July, the lunar nodes are actually shifting into Leo and Aquarius. The lunar nodes represent destiny. It's all about destiny in the collective and in the personal. So it's extra fire and air and extra Leo and Aquarius coming down for the 18 months, July 2026 to the end of 2027, when we're really grounding. So you could see, you peel back the layers, there's layers to this. But that's where the dawning of cosmic consciousness came by. Fire and air, I think about it archetypally as Zoroastrians almost, like the original religion in Iran with these temples with fire and opened, no ceilings in the temples because they're open to spirit in the heavens. And fire really connecting to air. Fire needs air to be stoked, and fire, right, has smoke that goes up to spirit. Some people use fire to give their blessings up to the heavens, to a god, to whatever they believe in. Right now, the nodes are in Pisces and Virgo. It's really about this tension between matter and spirit. And one way to talk about our transformation is we're becoming less physical matter and realizing that energy is real. And that's the other dimensions. So this is a little bit of that, and really our nodal Pisces Virgo right now is really about healing, and another part of the karmic theme, Pisces, Scorpio. For people who have placements in Pisces, Scorpio, Virgo, these are very karmic signs. And this is a different language for many of you. This is an example of a birth chart or a wheel of astrology. What we have on the outside are the 12 zodiac signs in order from Aries down to Pisces. This is actually a snapshot of the heavens. Each one has it for their birth time. If you have your birth time, snapshot of the heavens. This is a snapshot of actually the final eclipse, which for my Jewish friends was Rosh Hashanah on the Sunday, the day before Rosh Hashanah. It's the new year, new moon. And what can I say about it? I don't want to get into the technical stuff. If you want more technical, I have a 20-minute podcast episode all about the magic of this. I focused on this in the eclipse season. I just think it's incredible that the second month of eclipse season, the second phase of it, there's two every year. The second one ended up in the ninth month of the ninth year. Okay, that's as much of closing as you can get, but it gets more. The ninth month of the ninth year in the season of Virgo, we actually had 3 moon events, 2 new moons in Virgo, which is kind of rare. And the placements of it were 0 degrees and 29, the beginning and the end. It's every single theme is the beginning of the end. And what I feel we're guided into is that every ending is a beginning. And we need to start honoring that. It's really scary to have endings, but we do need to start honoring that. That's one of the reasons I created my course. The thing I kept hearing for eclipse season, which was this past September, is that it's a cease and desist order. We have to cease and desist. Our ego has to cease and desist. We think we know what we want. We think we know what we need. We don't. We have a version of that that's honestly smaller often than what we want or what we need or what we can be. But it's really seizing and desisting the old ways. But I heard it even in this concept that I'll talk more about in part 3, which is surrendering personal will to divine will. Another way of talking about that is merging my personal willpower with divine will. And I feel that something in the fabric of the universe is changing and that it's becoming harder and harder to do personal will over divine will. It's like, ready or not, here I come. Ready or not, you're being pushed into your potential, into your soul, what your soul came here for. And it hurts. 2025 was maybe the hardest year of my life. For those of you who know me personally, I had emergency surgery. I had a lot of loss. A lot physically in the hospital, ER, multiple times. Okay. I had then done shamanic journeying around that, and I saw that it was part of my soul's ascension, part of what I committed to, my contract in this life that actually connected back to my conception and was very ancestral. So when we have hard times, we think our human mind, our ego thinks, what did I do wrong? Why did I deserve it? Why do I have bad karma? From a spiritual standpoint, that's how greatness, that's where your greatness and your light comes. It's very Kabbalistic. That's your initiation into your power, into your gifts. I have a note here just that if you're here and you're listening to this, or if you're drawn to this, you have a role. I can look at your chart and try and see what that is. That's why I have my private practice. There are clues. The universe is alive. You're getting clues. You're getting nudges. You're getting messages. A stranger can tell you. You just have to start listening. I did a beautiful post about this last week that we are the ancestors our ancestors have been waiting for. All your ancestors are cheering you on right now. Literally, that's what I saw after my emergency surgery and my loss. All of my ancestors cheering me on. I did the thing that I was supposed to do. The same way the fabric of the universe is changing, another way of saying it is the veil is getting very thin between earth and the heavens. That's why my podcast is called Heaven on Earth. We get to see the inner workings. I was brought to tears a couple weeks ago. I was driving to a retreat in Ojai, and that morning I had the highest honor of reading my mentor's birth chart because he was going through something and he actually invited me to read for him. I was terrified at first. He's in his 60s. He's been doing this for 3 decades. And I nailed it for him. Like he literally told me he paid all this money for a fancy astrologer that year and it was worthless and this was gold. And it brought me to tears on my drive to this retreat right after that I get to see past the veil in this life. So much of stuff that not just me, all of us, we're getting so much unseen support and so much of what our ancestors dreamed of, we get to experience, and they get to experience in a way through us in this lifetime. So we're going to have to keep going. I think we talked about this. The only thing I'll say is the old world is crumbling. That first landmass is really crumbling, and the new landmass hasn't really formed. And I'm not sure that it really will yet. It's really an energetic embodiment that's coming. It's almost like she needs to line up with that sun in her center and move through the world with her energetic power and embodiment for the new world, the new earth to come. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but this is a vision that came to me before and during the eclipse times, and I later realized that I had even been journaling about it in March, the first eclipse of the year. And I just kept hearing the words mastering your destiny, mastering your destiny, mastering your destiny. It wasn't until September happened and the eclipse season happened that I started to feel this, that it's becoming harder to do divine, personal will over divine will, and this like guidance to really merge the two. And so mastering your destiny is as much about listening and finding the clues and the symbols. I take you on a journey to do that. And I sprinkle in some of my magic and gold dust, whatever it is, but I guide you into listening for yourself. The magic we create is together, really. I'm just interpreting or translating something for you. And that's what it's about. And I ended up pushing it back a couple weeks. And I realized and I got the awareness that it starts on 1010. It's an angel number 1010, but it's one. October is one. 10 is one. And it's 1-1. And we're starting on the 10th of October because it's the beginning of the new. So even though we're in this karmic 2025 year, we passed the 9th month, the most karmic time. Endings are beginnings, and it's up to us to start creating with our soul in mind, or in heart, I should say. And so this is just a preview of what it is. The first week is about looking at the destiny markers in your chart. It's my favorite part of doing readings for people. We all have destiny markers. They're called the lunar nodes. Understanding it personally and collectively. The second piece, which is what we're going to do right now in the preview reading, is about aligning with divine timing, because all the sacred geometry and the transits connect to time. And time is in some ways an illusion, but it's a numbers thing and it's a way of measuring, and there's chapters and cycles for everything. So I want you guys to understand cycles. And I just had a friend actually from my most recent mastery group that I did 3 months of with them, and it was all about transit readings, and we looked at 30 charts in the course. And we saw the craziest things about how people were being activated in this sacred time. So that's also an inspiration for offering this course. It's actually the only course I'm offering this year. And then we do some work around what is the new, what do we want, accessing our soul or our higher self, and what those visions are. Now I'm doing what is fun, one of my favorite parts. I'm going to pull a chart to show you an individual person's chart and how it affects you. Okay. Mike, are you with us?
Well, I'm here. I'm driving. I'm literally like about to pull up to UCLA, but I'm with you.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to pull up your chart.
This is an engagement present.
It is. Oh, his wedding is in a couple weeks.
Oh,
Yes,
pre-wedding.
love it.
Mazel tov.
Love it. Love that.
So, Mike, I have you as December 7th, 3:11 a.m., right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm doing this to show you guys what even does it mean that we each have our own divine timing. So this is Mike's chart. Mike has a cool chart. Everyone has a cool chart. Everyone has like a sacred, exquisite cosmic chart, divine chart. And I'll orient you a little bit. The outside is the 12 signs of the zodiac. They're always from in the same order, Aries to Pisces. And the inside is 12 slices, which is 12 areas of your life. Wow, Mike. And the horizontal axis is what we call like rising sign, ascendant, descendant. The vertical axis is family and home. It's midheaven, medium Koli, Ema Koli. So the 5-minute version of what does divine timing mean by looking at someone's chart? So what's on the chart is the 10 heavenly bodies, so the 8 planets, the 2 luminaries. I also chart Chiron for those of you who know what it is. And the nodes of destiny, these horseshoes that are not bodies, they're places that give you clues about what your destiny is. So I would love to do a birth chart reading for him where I talk about his whole chart, but I'm going to try and focus this on what this time means for Mike. So Mike has a special chart in the sense that, Mike, I don't know how familiar you are with your chart, but your moon is on your ascendant, which means the ascendant is literally when Mike landed on this planet Earth, what constellation was on the horizon, and then it looks at the whole of the heavens at that time and tells us about Mike and his life. So Mike is a Sagittarius. He has Neptune on his sun. He's a really dreamy person, you could say. And he has his moon on his ascendant, which means he enters the world with his emotional self, with his softness, with his heart, with his caring. It's like the inner mother and the inner child. The moon rules Cancer. So he's a sensitive. He comes across as sensitive when we meet him. He actually also has Chiron close to, not exactly on the descendant, the wounded healer, which is in the house of relationships and partnerships, which means he has many gifts to share in that world, but that's where he learned the hard way. We all have that through his wounding, through certain wounds or difficult lessons. So when I look at his chart, okay, so Mike, you have a very magical chart and birthday. It's full of angel numbers. Your vertical axis is 3.33. You're born at 311, 77, 7. You have a very magic, very like, yeah, full of magic. So the first thing that calls out to me, and I have a classmate from my class, so I'm feeling a bit more performance anxiety, let's say, but it's high stakes. But the first thing that calls out to me is that Mike's bottom of his vertical axis is in the early degrees of Aquarius. This vertical axis on the bottom is our roots, who we are, where we come from, our home, our family, our roots. And in a beautiful way, the top is the opposite. It's who we are publicly in the world and our career. His axis is at 3 degrees of Leo and Aquarius. So the age of Aquarius means something very personal to him with his roots. It's beautiful that you're getting married right now because Pluto is on the 3rd degree. I know because my husband's sun is 3 degrees Aquarius. And it's completely transforming your sense of roots, I'm getting emotional, your lineage. Like, for whatever reason, this person that you chose or you taking this action is very connected to Pluto, the planet of power and transformation, completely. I don't know, it's like right on the money. It's right. It's very, very symbolic. And that also is going to change who you are in the world professionally. Because Pluto is going over that point of your roots and your ancestors, but that is deeply connected to who you are professionally in your career. And for me, like one of the challenges, each person has like an agon or challenges in their chart. I have all this Leo. I have 4 planets, including my sun in Leo. It's so much leadership and I don't know, self-assertion to an extent, even though it's more Aries, but it's all hidden in my 4th house down in the family house. And I've learned kind of the hard way that all that leadership, it's inseparable. The polarity is inseparable. Who we are at home is inseparable. It's the other side of who we are at work. And they affect each other, and a transformation in one affects the other, how we show up in each place. So that's the big part of the story I see. And what's really happening, I'm not going to get too mechanical, but as these 3 planets shift into new energies, any planets you can look at your own chart that are at final degrees or 0 early degrees are getting worked on. So for Mike, the biggest thing I see is his Imam Koli and that sense of home. He also has Saturn at 0 degrees in Virgo. Wow, that's a big deal. So I'm not gonna do too much mechanics about this, but in the 10th house of career, so that might correspond to what's happening in the career. But at the same time that Pluto is shifting into Aquarius, Mike, and I'll say 1 or 2 more things and I'll let you comment if you want. When Pluto was moving into this new sign, it was making an aspect, sacred geometry of 150 degrees to his Saturn, which is part of his 10th house of career, which means, in other words, it was totally destroying, or like transforming is a better word, your discipline and the work that you do and who you are out in the world. You were having a new relationship to tradition, to discipline. It's even karmic, so there might be some karmic things. I'd have to have a conversation with you. I don't read one directionally. I'm just teasing something right now. I want to check that there's nothing else. Yeah, I think the big story for you is career and personal life, and really that discipline and the karma and how you show up in that way. And then you're getting a rebirth in like how you show up professionally. Mike, can you say a word or 2 about that?
Okay. I'm just showing you, I'm just going to be on video for a second while I'm walking on UCLA campus. I'm literally walking right now to go meet with the head of the undergrad program of public affairs. I teach a grad school class here at UCLA. And I'm walking right now to literally pitch a class that's going to be co-taught with my partner, Julia, on bridge building and connection, and how the way that they're
Wow.
teaching knowledge right now to undergrads has to
Wow.
be completely shifted because of AI. And I'm literally walking to pitch a class on like wisdom and experiences and perspective. And if these students don't understand how to bridge things both within themselves and with each other and with humanity and with the world, that like this next vibration, I'm not going to use these words exactly, but like isn't going to meet the potential that it should be able to reach. So can't make this stuff up as you're talking, right? Like you didn't have
Wow.
any notes, you had no idea of that.
Yeah.
And this week on Tuesday, right before Yom Kippur, it was my last political policy consulting call. I am closing that practice, and I am stepping into a totally new consulting, facilitating, experience designing, narrative, storytelling, teaching thing that is like more aligned with my dharma at this point, like building off of my work as a lawyer and in politics and tech and everything like that. And so, yeah, I'm feeling this like huge shift, like literally happening. I'm like walking to campus right now about to pitch a class. So,
Wow. With
yeah,
like about you and your partner, it's like the most gorgeous expression of the family and the roots and the home, and this change, totally changing your career. And I also see the Saturn in that you're saying that the old way, you want to reform education, the old systems aren't working. And you have the gifts, you have the constellation to really make a difference and do that. It's so, so beautiful.
so wild. Yeah. And like, yeah, stepping into starting a new family and finding a new home and building roots. Yeah, just the whole thing is so wild. And what I really love about the way you teach it and the framing is that it goes from like the macro as like what's happening in the cosmos, what's happening in the world, what's happening here in our country, to then what's happening within us. And to just like,
Totally.
even just being aware of that and then, doing what we can to attune and align to it is just so helpful. Yeah, so thank you.
Oh, I'm so glad. How cosmic that you're on the campus walking to that meeting.
I know. I was like, should I spend this time prepping for this pitch or should I listen to Maxine like wax poetic about cosmology? I was like, you know what? I think this is gonna get me more in a mindset than
Oh
looking at
my God, I
material.
love that. You like literally are walking in with all the gifts and the inner knowing. I love that. Wow.
Yeah, it's so cool. So I am gonna sign off right now.
Yeah,
While we
go
walk
for
into
it.
the
I have
meeting.
to, yeah, I want to bring it home
Thank
for
you. That
everybody
was
else.
awesome. That was awesome. And just fortuitous that it was my chart that you picked. So appreciate it. And
Yeah.
big love to everybody. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Mike. Okay. So we're in part 3, which is what do we do with all this? And the only way I know how to say it is that there's a new operating system loading. You know, when your computer, you like avoid, and then it takes over and everything is on pause and there's a new operating system loading. I got this message a couple of years ago. I want to give like a TEDx talk about it. I'm figuring out what I'm going to turn it into, but the message is machine unlearning. As AI picks up machine learning, LLM, and builds all these models, we have to do machine unlearning. We have to come back to our hearts and our souls and realize that we are doing such big work right now, and we are living through one of the biggest transformations, that this is as real as everything else, as your paycheck. This is more real than your paycheck, that money that's in the bank, that's not real. I love money. It's not about money. It's about this is real. This is soul and human. We get to be both. That's part of what the power within is. So I jokingly call it machine unlearning, and it's a process. Like I said, spirit's not stressed that we're like not doing our work. When we shame each other for not doing the work, that's our wounding. It's just a beautiful invitation. And I like to have fun when I teach, and I like to have fun in my classes. If you like these themes and want to hear more, I have 4 episodes out in season 1 of my podcast. I have my private practice. Thank you for being here. I like to say I'm sharing stuff with you. Some of it might resonate, some of it might not. If it resonates, something that a part of you knew already, you're just like remembering. When I teach, it's just a reminder, if it resonates, that there's something within that is recognizing a part of your soul that wanted to be here in this time or wanted to do these crazy things.
I just wanted to ask, because I thought it was really interesting that you said that this year has been like a really difficult year. And I was just curious because I've also felt that, but in a different way. Whereas I was describing it to a friend the other day, like I've felt through the years that like when something happens in my life, I'm like, oh, I just need to energetically step into this state and then it's resolved and like it moves and it shifts. Whereas this year, it feels like carrying really heavy rocks, and like I do feel that sort of surrender to divinity where like I just don't have that same manifestation, I would say, capacity, or it just hasn't aligned in the same ways.
I have a big feeling about this. I'm glad you're bringing it up. I think a lot of the way that we're trained to manifest and that I've manifested in the past is still from a place of ego and human will. And it's almost false in a way, or it doesn't work for you, because if you're not manifesting what's your destiny at a soul level, you're going in circles. So it might feel good to think that you know that you want this thing, like a new job or this or that, but it's not what your soul maybe came here for. And I speak in black and white, like forgive me, that's the English language and the mind. But I think it's really shifting that we can't, that's the cease and desist. Stop trying to control. If you manifest, okay, you want to go on a long walk in the park, go on a long walk in the park, but your world might get rocked a little if you keep burying your head in the sand. And unfortunately, I think that's part of the culture of manifestation, that it's still very ego-based and we still think things are good or bad. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it's that the shift is really like being sort of forced. It's like this thing is not working anymore. So now you have to surrender to listening.
That's exactly it. If there's one word I could give you, it's listen. the whole post I did about the really came through me about we're the ancestors our ancestors have been waiting for. We need to pause and not fill in an answer and just listen. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. You see butterfly, whatever it is, ask for a sign, ask for a symbol. There is so much guidance. So we just need to pause and listen. That's what I'm trying to hold space for, honestly, for myself, as much as for everyone else. Like, this is big leagues. This is big leagues. I had a slide, but I didn't know how to how to visualize it. And I just had a header that said, this is not a drill. It's not a drill. And I don't say that to scare you because there is an element of free will on this earth. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just saying, Major League Baseball, we're in. We're in, and there's a lot of support around us. And it's not a drill. It doesn't mean that anyone's forcing you, but you're gonna feel stuck if you don't. You're gonna feel like you're in a straitjacket.
I don't actually have a question, but I just wanted to say thank you for the way that you taught. I felt like it was really well iterated and it really did land. And um, yeah, I've been getting a lot of signs lately around the archetypes and around astrology in general. So receiving this is just landing in a lot of different ways. And as you know a little bit about, I have a pretty deep connection to the stars and like actually visually learning the stars and seeing them. And so receiving this knowledge in this way has been coming for a long time. And so, yeah, I'm just really grateful for you sharing this and that I was able to be here. I'm quite jet lagged, but
Me too. Ariel got back from Guam yesterday.
yeah, it's been like 2 days of travel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and she navigates on ships using the stars. So she's out on the ocean for long periods of time, navigating using the stars.
Yeah,
Talk about as above, so below.
yeah. I just was on a ship for 10 days and I was traveling from Hawaii to Guam. And so it's Southern Hemisphere. So it's the stars I'm not as used to seeing. So it was almost like a totally different picture of the night sky. And it was really clear skies, really good weather, new moon, so super dark. And so I learned a lot.
Oh,
And so like getting home from that and landing into this just feels really good.
so nice. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm so honored that you're all here. I love spending time with people. This is what I love to do, illumination. Thank you again. And Happy New Year for my Jewish friends and family.